All right. Good evening, everyone. Guys hear me okay? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hoover. I
We
appreciate it.
do. Hello, Judge.
Gotcha, Mr. Wilson. All right, let's make sure the YouTube's going. All right. All right. Mr. Court Reporter, I think we're ready to go.
You're on the record, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chuck McLean. I'm the Chief Public Utility Law Judge at the Maryland Public Service Commission. Today is June 8th, 2022. It's approximately 7 p.m. We're conducting a virtual public hearing tonight in case number 9675, which is captioned Waypost Solar Project LLC's application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to construct a 92 megawatt solar photovoltaic generating facility in Caroline County, Maryland. The purpose of this evening's hearing is to allow members of the public an opportunity to comment on the project and make both me and the parties aware of any issues or concerns surrounding the project you may have. Additionally, written comments may be e-filed through the Commission's public comment system, which can be accessed at the Commission's website at www.ps.psc.state.md.us. Instructions for logging into the public comment system are located under the Tools section of the Commission's website under the Make a Public Comment tab. You may also file written comments by mail, sending them directly to the Maryland Public Service Commission. Attention, Andrew Johnston, Executive Secretary, 6 St. Paul Street, 16th floor, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202. Please reference case number 9675 in your comments so they make it to the correct file. The deadline for all written comments is October 18th, 2022. Currently, all the documents filed in this case are available on the Commission's website and can be accessed by typing 9675 into the case search tab. Copies of the application are also available to the public at the Caroline County Department of Planning and Codes in the Health and Public Services Building, 403 South 7th Street, Suite 210 in Denton, Maryland. In terms of where this case sits procedurally, Waypost has filed their application and their direct testimony is due to be filed on June 16th, 2022. And the Power Plant Research Program, or PPRP, the Office of People's Counsel, and the Commission's staff's testimony is due on October 4th, 2022. A second public comment hearing has been scheduled for the week of October 17th, 2022, with the time and location to be determined. All comments I receive, whether they're verbal or in written format, I will consider when I issue my order. Before I turn it over to the applicant for a brief presentation, I'll introduce the parties that will be presenting this evening. For Waypost, we have Maxwell Cook, counsel for the applicant, and I believe he has some individuals that will be helping him. For PPRP, we have Sandra McLemore. She's an assistant attorney general, and she represents the Department of Natural Resources Power Plant Research Program. PPRP's responsibility is for coordinating 7 different state agencies and reviewing CPCNs and making recommendations on these types of projects. We have Mr. Peter Wilson, who's an attorney on behalf of the Commission staff. The Commission staff reviews these projects' impact on the stability and reliability of the distribution grid. And last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Fred Hoover. He's an assistant People's Counsel with the Office of People's Counsel, which is an independent state agency that represents all residential ratepayers' interests. And we do have one individual who's signed up to speak tonight. So before we get to him, Mr. Cook, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you to all those joining on WebEx and YouTube this evening. Max Cook is counsel on behalf of the applicant, Waypost Solar Project LLC. I'm also joined by several folks from the Annul team, the developer for the project. First, I have Mr. Sam Judd, Senior Development Manager. I have Mr. Chad Lobley, Development Manager. Mr. Ashton Martin, Senior Environmental and Permitting Specialist. Mr. Nick Guzman, Energy Storage Design Manager. Additionally, I'm joined by Mr. Dane Bauer and Mrs. Melissa Hall from H&B Solutions, the environmental consultants for the project. Finally, I'm joined by Mr. Joe Scott from WSP, the lead consultant and engineer for the project. I will now pass it over to Mr. Sam Judd, who will provide a brief overview about the developer, and after that, Mr. Dane Bauer will provide an environmental overview of the project. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, thanks, Max. Hi, I'm Sam Judd. I'm the Senior Development Manager for Enel Green Power. I do have a brief PowerPoint deck. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay. It's saying I can't share unless I'm the host, a co-host, or the presenter.
Okay, let me, of course, let me, oh, I gotta love technology. Let me, bear with me for 1 second, please, sir. Been a little while since I've done this, so just trying to remember how to get there. Mr. Judd. All right, I think I just made you the presenter, sir.
Okay. Here we go. Is that visible?
Yes, sir, it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, just a brief overview of Enel Green Power, just as a company and the project Waypost, just the project itself. So Enel Green Power is a leading developer, owner, and operator of renewables in the U.S. and Canada. I just want to point out that our model, for the most part, is to own and operate the projects that we develop. There are a lot of developers out there that they're just purely a development entity. They develop the project and sell it to someone else to build it and own it and operate it. Typically, we own and operate and build the projects that we develop. Shown here is Roadrunner Solar. That's one of our projects in Texas. I believe that's about 497 megawatts. So that's a very large project just south of Midland, Odessa in Texas. Just a snapshot of Enel Green Power in the U.S. and Canada. So for over 20 years, Enel has been a renewable energy leader and innovator in the United States and Canada. Our goal is to help communities, companies, and consumers find value and sustainability. So we currently have projects in 18 U.S. states and 1 Canadian province, 650 plus employees at Enel Green Power. I think we're closer to 700 now. It changes quite a bit. We have 2 innovation hubs, one in Boston and one in San Francisco. And as you can see, the main offices there are Andover, Massachusetts, outside of Boston, Lenexa, Kansas, outside of Kansas City. Those are the 2 main offices. And then we have some satellite offices, Oklahoma, Nevada, DC, and Alberta in Canada. So Enel's presence, currently we're America's 4th largest clean power owner. That is spread across 4 different technologies. That's wind, geothermal, battery storage, and solar in the US and Canada. So we currently have 64 renewable energy power plants, and that's a total capacity of over 8 gigawatts, so 8,000 megawatts across those 4 different technologies. And again, we're present in 18 US states and 1 Canadian province. In 2020, we produced 20 terawatt hours of energy. That's enough energy to power 1.8 million households over a year. We created more than 3,500 construction jobs since 2016 on our projects. And we are investing $8 billion of capital to support growth of renewable capacity in the US and Canada through 2024. And this is just a timeline of the growth of Enel. You can see we started in 2000 with an acquisition of a hydropower plant, 261 megawatts. 2008, we were at 570 megawatts, just about a gigawatt in 2010. We expanded into Canada then. 2 gigawatts in 2014. 2017, we're at 4 gigawatts. 6 gigawatts in 2020. That's when we fully integrated Tradewind Energy, which was a acquisition, a large wind developer in the Midwest. And then 2022, we're at 8 gigawatts there. So then just a brief overview of the Waypost project, featuring up to 92 megawatts of solar power capacity and 20 megawatts of storage. It's battery storage. Waypost will produce enough carbon-free electricity to power over 15,000 Maryland households and avoid the emissions of more than 113,000 tons of carbon dioxide each year. The project will also create between 150 to 200 jobs during construction and generate predictable long-term income for landowners. So as far as the timeline, we anticipate construction to start in the spring of 2023. And we are hoping to have construction completed and the project online and injecting energy into the grid by the end of 2023. And that's it. And with that, I'll pass it over to Dane Bauer, I believe.
Thank you very much, sir.
Hi, I'm Dane Bauer. I'm a member with my partner Melissa Hall in H&B Solutions, and we specialize in doing environmental review documents for applicants seeking CPCN licenses in the state of Maryland. To sort of coordinate the beginning of this, so for the 92 megawatt project and the battery storage, we evaluated probably over 1,000 acres in order to find the best and most suitable location that maximize avoidance and minimization. So the project now, as currently designed, is on 495 acres, and that includes 24 parcels. We actually have 2 more parcels that we evaluated that were not necessary in order to meet the capacity requirements of the project. So once we did the environmental review document under the new Public Service Commission regulations, we prepared a draft version of it and submitted it to the county, along with other general information for the county to review relative to consistency with zoning and other local requirements. They got back to us and basically indicated that the detailed responses to our document would probably come later as part of their TAC review process, technical advisory committees of the site plan. So we're still in a process with them. It's continuing, but we did get 2 letters. We got 1 letter which indicated that the project was consistent with their solar ordinance. Caroline County has an ordinance that decides or determines where you can locate these utility scale solar projects. It has to do with zoning, environmental considerations, and also has a lot to do with where the power lines are. They put a cap on how many acres that you can have all total in the county. So the letter basically said that this project does conform with the county ordinance. We also, this project, I don't know, is especially unique, but we're not cutting any forested areas. For a project of this size, you usually find that you may have to cut some forested areas, but we can meet the capacity without doing that. We did the Forest Conservation Act worksheet and sent it to the county along with the forest stand delineation. And they sent us a letter that said that we had met the no net loss requirement, and therefore the project would not have to do any Forest Conservation Act mitigation. Then on to the state agencies. We had several parts of the project that needed to be reviewed by the Maryland Department of the Environment. We did a wetlands location and delineation. We met with MDE in the field with the consultant that did the evaluation. They basically sent us a letter that said that they agree with all the locations, and they agreed that we had avoided the features and that we had actually we over buffered them. The law says that we need to stay 25 feet away from delineated wetlands. We stayed 35 feet away to provide extra protections. And we did that in a lot of cases. We're far over 100 feet, for example, from blue line streams in most locations. We have actually buffered the ag farms, which ditches, I'm sorry, the ag ditches, which are not jurisdictional. We have put 15-foot buffers around all the ag ditches. We did this in part because this project is located in a Tier 2 watershed. Tier 2 watershed is high quality water, anti-degradation area. And we wanted to make sure that this project had every benefit of design and environmental stewardship that we could. We did a lot of avoidance and minimization. We wrote a letter to the Department of the Environment along with an application and told them everything that we were doing to provide these water quality protections. And they sent us a letter back, which is also in the ERD document, which basically says that they were exempting us from the more stringent rules of Tier 2. So in addition to that, and the letter that we got on the wetlands, where they agreed with all of our locations and buffers, we also talked to the Maryland Department of the Environment about dewatering. Most sites on the Eastern Shore have very high water tables, and during construction, you can get into pretty heavy withdrawal rates and you need an appropriation permit. MDE told us that for this project, the water table was lower than expected, and they also are going to give us an exemption for dewatering as well. We did get some help from the Soil Conservation District office in locating all the farm ditches. We wanted to make sure that we had the official delineation, and they're on the farm plans, which are registered with the Soil Conservation District office. So we got all the farm plans, we located all the ag ditches, and then we had our consultant go out and verify it. And there were a few farm ditches that actually showed characteristics of a stream, so we called them jurisdictional, and we're protecting them. In that regard, we were able to avoid crossing almost all the ditches and all the blue line streams, except in 7 cases where we had to do interconnections of internal drive aisles. And 2 of the crossings that we had to put in were over non-jurisdictional areas and did not need any permits. 5 of them did need a permit from the department, and they said since it was de minimis, we would not need a wetlands permit. We could get a general permit authorization under a letter of authorization. There were a couple more agencies which I'll quickly speak to. One of our consultants did the online assessment of U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and they came back and said that there were no items of concern. We sent a letter to the Department of Natural Resources. They said that there were 2 species listed that they wanted us to be aware of. They were plants and aquatic vegetation. Because this whole property was actively farmed for decades, obviously these features were not found in the areas where we're putting the panels. They were mostly on the fringes. And because we're putting 35-foot setbacks from the wetlands, and we were able to avoid almost anything that was a wet feature, that the project turns out to be very protective of those species. We also went to the Maryland Historic Trust and asked for their review. They came back and said we needed to do an archaeological phase 1 assessment. We did that. We also had to do determinative eligibility reviews of some few older, possibly historic buildings in the area. All that work was done and submitted to Maryland Historic Trust. They sent us a letter back, which basically said we didn't need to do any more. These were not the reports indicated that there were no impacts. The project will end up with a very small impervious area, something less than 5%, which means that 95% of the area is going to be vegetated. We're also going to put vegetative buffers up for screening consistent with whatever the county feels that we need. I mentioned we're not cutting any forest, but we are cutting 4 or 5 acres of isolated trees. They're like tree stands or pockets of trees. Some of them were along some of the wetter areas. We wouldn't even be cutting them if we could do the project and meet the capacity requirements, but we're going to have to cut 4 or 5 acres of trees. The only other thing for the record is that we will be preparing a decommissioning plan for PPRP to review and for the Public Service Commission. This will ensure that the project, when it's decommissioned, will be restored back to its natural condition that existed before the project took place, and so that these areas can be farmed again. I believe that gives finishes my general summary of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer. Mr. Cook, does that conclude your presentation, sir?
It does, Your
Yes,
Honor.
sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Dubitsky, did I pronounce that correctly, sir?
You did, Your Honor. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. The floor is yours, sir.
Terrific. I'll try to make it brief. Thank you, Your Honor, and good evening. My name is Adam Dubitsky. I'm
Please take your time, sir. Don't feel rushed.
Terrific.
Okay.
Good to know. I'm used to the General Assembly where they've got that 2-minute shot clock right in front of you. I'm appearing this evening on behalf of the Maryland chapter of the Land and Liberty Coalition, and I serve as its state director. For the reasons I'll summarize tonight, we urge the Commission to support Case 9675, the Waypost solar project. The Land and Liberty Coalition is a 501c3 nonprofit. We represent Marylanders who support community and utility scale clean energy developments. Our coalition is made up of farmers, landowners, taxpayers, key stakeholders who are concerned about protecting their private property rights, responsible economic development in their communities, being good stewards of their land, and increasingly American energy independence. Without wading too far into politics, the majority suburban and urban representation of the General Assembly tends to dominate the discussion of climate and conservation. And as a result, we find that there is too little discussion of the benefits of these projects for rural and agricultural communities in Maryland. And also, there's been a good amount of inaccurate information. In addition to my testimony tonight, we'll also upload a few fact sheets that go into more details on solar and also wind power in rural parts of the state. Projects such as Waypost will do more than help our state meet its greenhouse gas reduction goals and address global climate change. It'll directly benefit Caroline County's economy, preserve agricultural land for future generations, and help to safeguard against the type of out-of-control residential and commercial development we're seeing in other parts of the state.
Got to go.
Yep.
It's 4:30.
Okay, I'll just keep going. There's somebody else with an open mic. In
I'm
fact,
muted. You're good.
okay, the main threat to Maryland's rural areas is in fact out-of-control development and suburban sprawl. A farm that is sold to a housing developer or a distribution facility is gone forever. Along with the hundreds of new houses will come traffic congestion, added burdens on local government, and not to mention a massive and permanent environmental impact. As one of our partners flippantly puts it, solar panels don't have kids that need elementary schools. By contrast, landowners who choose instead to sell or lease a portion of their property for solar projects such as Waypost not only preserve the agricultural land for future generations, but after years of rest and regeneration, the land is often much more productive after the project is responsibly decommissioned, as the applicant mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. In fact, solar paired with native vegetation can improve soil health and water quality and provide pollinator habits that bring additional benefits to the land, also the adjacent farms. And with proper cover planting, the solar and vegetation can avoid stormwater runoff, which reduces erosion and helps recharge the groundwater, all of which is especially important in the eastern shore of Maryland, where bay preservation has a large impact on landowners and is a priority for the residents of that area. Bees and other pollinators are an essential aspect of crop production and are disappearing from our landscape. By installing native flowers and grasses beneath ground-mounted solar arrays, they become pollinator-friendly places and support critical habitats. That not only increases future crop yield, but it also contributes to biodiversity, and as I mentioned, helps adjacent farms as well. Maryland's farm families have borne the burden of bay protection laws and deserve a lot of the credit for a cleaner bay. When a property is leased to a solar company, the burden and the expense of complying with these endless regulations and the management of the property shift to the company for the life of the lease, and during which time the owner often has a rate of return which is far higher than that of traditional farming. Finally, to begin to wrap this up, most of our partners at Land of Liberty Coalition and a lot of our approach is unapologetically right of center. Across the nation, we're seeing red states and counties being leaders in clean energy generation, not because it's forced on them by Washington or the state capitals, but because wind and solar power is now cheaper than gas and coal and provides real benefits not only for the climate and the world, but also landowners, farmers, and local communities. Again, I'll upload a few fact sheets that provide a lot more detail, and if people are interested in learning more about what we do, they can get in touch with me or find us on Facebook. And in closing, thank you for letting us be a part of this conversation. We look forward to continuing to be a part of this discussion, and I thank you again for your time, Your Honor.
Thank you very much for your comments and for joining us tonight. Is there anybody else who would like to speak before we sign off? Once, twice. All right. Thank you all very much. I appreciate the presentation. And Mr. Dubitsky, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us. All right. Doug, we're off the record.
We're off the record, Your Honor. Thank you.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.